So now we have a new place to be for the preceding minutes as we move forward. So I have to share with you during the weekend seminar that we had, we did the elevator over and over again. We did variations on the theme. We're doing like figure eights with our hips like a hula dancer and all sorts of things. And exercises with partners and so forth. And it was all really good, but there was this other thing happening, that this belly brain, this sentient area that had been laying there dormant, it seemed like, there was a warming process as it became increasingly aware. And as we did the elevator shaft, it was nice to sort of invoke that again. But it also created these questions in myself. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation of, when I was much younger, I was involved in a spiritual tradition which had a very different paradigm. As I began to look at it, every religion, every transformational path, has a paradigm in terms of what is it that we're doing here. And it seems to me that one of the main religious paradigms, is we have this thing, we can call it our carnal nature, our animal self, and there's this negative context to it. And then how do we deal with it? How do we transform that? And there's usually some mix of piety and asceticism, doing good works, doing your practices, and somehow the work, the effort, the friction, the heat, somehow that will be transformed. Is sort of how the story goes. And so there's that one, and then there's this whole psychological one, which has to do with the shadow world, where there's deep psychological patterns, that we don't have access to. And so in each case, there's a taboo, around this. And so here we are, everyone just, I'll go down the elevator, and I was making a joke, we're going to the lingerie department, the whole thing, see where it stops. And everyone's quite comfortable with that. When it's completely energetic, it doesn't change in terms of what's there. And so I want you to speak to these paradigms and the taboo around them, and why is it that we have this deep invitation to go there?
All the religious traditions, the major religious traditions, were created in what's called the axial age. Karl Jaspers, I think it was, realized that in this period, like 500 BC sits at the middle of the axial age, and it sort of goes, I think, from 800 BC to 200 AD or something. It's this period of time when there was this foment of religions, and in my understanding, what's happening is this migration is completely changing our allegiances to the world and the way we see the world. And these religions are being formulated to deal with this growing schism within ourselves, and how to heal it, and how to clarify our changing relationship with the world around us, because your relationship to your body is the template for all your relationships, and we increasingly, as we leave our sense of being and move up through the body, need to understand what's happening. And there are, like, Zoroastrianism came in with all the laws and the good and the bad, and tried to impose order. Taoism turned our attention towards harmony, but that migration up is leading towards the sky. It's leading away from the body. It's leading away from the feminine, and the male, dissociated from the feminine, for whatever reason, wants to believe that it is self-sufficient without the feminine. It's so smart and able, it's such a doer, and what do you need being for anyway? The impact on us is incalculable. And that thing of coming back to the body, for me, is a journey of the soul. And it reveals the soul in a different way, because we tend to think of the soul as something aspiring to spirit and longing to reconnect with the eternal. But you know what? That's where the soul came from. It's where the soul lives. Its connection with the eternal is a given. It doesn't need the connection with the eternal reaffirmed. What it needs is to experience this here now. That's why we're in these bodies. And when you connect with the soul's hunger to experience the particularity of this moment, of this relationship, of this room, that your soul, I love Meister Eckhart's phrase that the soul wants to grow bigger and bigger, and it's the opposite of an egoic thing. It's finding its relationships in an ever widening sphere and finding itself. It's as we come into relationship with the world that our existence is revealed in its particular shades and hues. Without our relationships with the world, we wouldn't exist at all. We would blink out of existence. So our existence is felt through our relationship. Well, then, the more deeply you submit to the soul's hunger, the more deeply you come into relationship with the world, and the more keenly you're aware of your sense of being. And your being, again, we have this notion of the self that wants to close itself off, wants to isolate itself from the world. But to me, your being doesn't exist in isolation. Your being is what you discover when you're fully present. All of that supports you in your being, informs your being, and is part of your being. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Well, I think what I was asking, though, that it sort of turned everything on its head here. That what was a sort of taboo, problematic part of the architecture, energy architecture of being a human being, is now where we're being asked to, dive into in a way. And so I'm saying, well, what is different, And that, in one sense, you use the mythological picture of going into the underworld, and so so there is a taboo around that, but at the same time, there's so much to be revealed in that, and it doesn't have to be. When we're talking about this word, the nafs, it's an Islamic word. This animal soul, which is preventing us from coming into union. So there's a struggle around it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, and now it's like we're being asked to soften into it, which is a very different paradigm altogether.
Now, when you say we're being asked,
or being invited in this practice,
yeah, because we're also, my sense is we're being asked in a larger way. That my practice is a small part of something much bigger that's happening. But the invitation to go back into the body isn't an invitation to return to something we were. It's an invitation to become whole in a way we haven't been before. If you think of the evolution of our consciousness in terms of this migration of the center of our consciousness, the center of our thinking, from the pelvic bowl up into the head, the whole time our experience of our mind has been what I call a unipolar phenomenon. It's like one pole, it's one center. And I think we're standing on the brink of a necessary evolution in our consciousness, and I think what is being asked of us in that larger sense is to, for the first time, grow beyond this sort of isolated unipolar phenomenon into the axis of our consciousness. The axis of our consciousness is that open corridor of the elevator shaft that permits an exchange from our place of pure feeling with our place of pure abstraction and brings them into balance and exchange, and each reveals the strengths of the other and supports the other in that.